I have projected the same images day after day, becoming a prisoner of the known. But the known is dead and past now, and I must buy my ticket to freedom by embracing the fresh unknown. Chance encounters, unexpected coincidences, premonitions, dreams and wishes, flashes of unpredictable joy, random events are taking meaning, weaving themselves in the web of time. I have left the voice of reason. I'm listening to the beckoning whisper in the recesses of my heart, and new shapes of reality are coaxing me out of my prison. When you passed through the birth of the achiever, new things became important to you. Success, solving problems, competing with others, making sure your self-image expanded. Of course, not everyone sees themselves as an achiever. So is this step really necessary? Yes, for although not everyone prizes success above everything else, or identifies with money, work, and status, the achiever is more basic than that. It is the ego in action, proving to itself that separation is endurable. If you lost your inner peace and fulfillment with nothing to compensate for that loss, separation would be tragic. Instead, the birth of the achiever makes this a joyous world, full of things to learn and to do. In some people, the achiever will last a very long time. The thirst for fame and fortune will overwhelm the true purpose of their quest. But God permits complete free will, and if a person decides that the world out there is more important than himself or herself, then a craving for fame and fortune must follow, because humans are created to want more and more fulfillment. It's an illusion to claim, however, that a person can stop evolving. However long you choose to linger in these earlier ego-dominated stages of alchemy, transformation cannot be halted, only postponed. The ego, as a wizard sees it, has no fulfillment at all, and therefore is false. Here's a lesson from Merlin to make the point.
Merlin disappeared from Arthur's world long before he became king, only to suddenly reappear one day walking out of the forest up to the castle. Overjoyed to see his old master, Arthur ordered a royal banquet in his honor. But Merlin acted bewildered.
Perhaps I might attend if you would tell me truly, who are you?
Arthur was astonished, but before he could protest, Merlin addressed the assembled court in a loud voice.
I shall offer this bag of gold dust to anyone who can tell me who this person is.
And immediately a purse bulging with pure dust of gold appeared in the wizard's hands. Baffled, none of the Round Table Knights uttered an answer, but a brash young page ventured, "We all know who this is. It's the king." Merlin shook his head and curtly dismissed the page from the hall.
Don't any of you know who this is?
"Well, surely it is Arthur," another voice cried out. "Even a fool knows that." Merlin spotted where the voice came from. It was an old serving maid in the corner, and briskly ordered her from the room. The whole court was now in confusion, but at the same time the wizard's challenge quickly turned into a game. All kinds of answers began to fly. This was the son of Uther Pendragon, ruler of Camelot, sovereign of England. Merlin accepted none of these answers, nor the more clever guesses such as son of Adam, flower of Albion, a man among men, etc. Eventually, Queen Guinevere herself was drawn in. "Why, this is my beloved husband," she murmured. Merlin only shook his head and sent her from the hall. One by one, each person was dismissed until no one remained except Merlin and the king.
"Wizard, you have stymied us all," Arthur admitted, "but I am sure I know who I am. Therefore my answer is this. I am Merlin's old friend and disciple, who loves him above all mortal men."
After the briefest of hesitations, Merlin greeted this last answer with the same dismissal as all the others, and the king had no choice but to leave. curiosity, however, made him stop and look down upon the great hall from a balcony. To his surprise, Merlin walked over to a casement window, opened the purse, and flung the gold dust into the open air.
Why did you throw away that precious gold? Arthur cried out. Merlin looked up.
I had to. The wind told me who you are.
The wind? But it didn't say anything.
Exactly, he replied with a smile.
The moral of this tale is that we have no name ultimately but spirit, which is as free as the wind. However, none of us needs reminding that the achiever who wants to make a name for himself in the world remains with us a long time, decades after we grow up. As long as ego is present, the achiever will be present too. The achiever never satisfies its appetites, and you might think nothing could sway it. After all, there is no limit to the experiences that you can amass. The world is infinite in its diversity, but as the ego grows, smothering the spirit in its wake, a small inner voice begins to wonder, where is love? Where is being? The fourth step of alchemy, yet another birth, is at hand.
Merlin had grown thoughtful, lost in reflections about the twists and turns of human fate.
Strange and strange again, he muttered to himself. Then he said to Galahad and Percival, it may take many years, but in time the ego hits upon a new notion, that happiness doesn't lie just in taking, but also in giving. This discovery marks the birth of the giver, which is a happy event because it rids the ego of many kinds of old fears. There is the fear of isolation, which total selfishness must lead to. There is the fear of loss, which arises because you can't hold on to everything forever. And there is the fear of making enemies, those who want to take things from you. By becoming a giver, the ego doesn't have to live with these fears anymore, at least not as much as before. But there is something deeper at work too. Giving connects two people, the giver and the receiver. This connection gives birth to a new sense of belonging, not the passive belonging of the baby who automatically belongs to the mother, but the active belonging of someone who has learned to create happiness. Giving is creative. Before the giver is born, guarding against loss was all important. This meant loss of money and possessions, but also loss of self-image, loss of importance. Miraculously, the giver turns loss into a positive thing. Now the person can part with things freely. Yet this doesn't feel like a loss. Instead, the ego feels pleasure in parting with money or possessions or feelings, all of which had to be jealously hoarded before. How amazing! For the pleasure of taking was never like this.
Galahad looked up from the glowing fire. Love has entered the heart. That's the difference.
Yes. As long as the ego pursues self-interest, it doesn't feel love. It may feel intense pleasure, or self-satisfaction, or attachment. These feelings are sometimes called love, but in its nature, love is selfless, and it takes a selfless act to call love forth. Giving is the first step that takes you outside your narrow circle of ego into the infinite circle of love.